The box was full of robbers, but there was no one at the checkpoint. The police chief knew that the box must have been remodeled. He called a subordinate to enter the bottom of the box. He came to the outside of the box and then ordered his subordinates to shoot. The position of the bullet hole explained everything in an instant. He returned to the box and issued a warning. If you don't come out obediently, shoot immediately. But the robber was clear in his heart that it was hard to escape even if he couldn't get out. Mia found that there was still space above the wooden box, so she climbed up first. The impatient police chief was about to order, but the iron door was suddenly opened. There was no mystery here. The police chief shot to end the girl's life. Then the order began to clear the bullet through the iron plate and shot into the house. Everyone was shot into a sieve in an instant. Mia's hands were tightly wrapped around her mouth. She was afraid that she would make a little noise. In the end, even the lucky child survived. It's hard to escape a gunshot. After the police chief took people away, she shivered and took out her cell phone. She sent a voice message to her husband. Let her find a place to hide quickly, or she will be shot. At first, she and her husband were actually in the same box. Unexpectedly, the tongue opened the box door again. More robbers rushed in at once. After a moment of confusion, Nick was arranged by the tongue to another box. In this way, the two were completely separated. At this time, Mia was the only one left in the box. And this is where the dream journey began. She didn't know if her husband was dead or alive. She could only leave everything to God. But God didn't seem to like her. There was a typhoon that night. The ship was swaying on the sea. In order to keep the ship, the captain had to order to abandon some containers. And Mia's box was in it. When she woke up the next day, it was already dawn. The whole container rotated 180 degrees. She looked out through the bullet hole and found that there was a mess around it. She wanted to contact her husband, but her phone screen was broken. She took out her spare phone, but forgot the password. And the worst thing was the child in her stomach. It's been a long time since there's been any movement. At this time, the seawater was still flowing in. She immediately opened the wooden box to search for supplies. One box was filled with a plastic box. The other box was a sports jacket. There was even a box of liquid gold, but there was nothing to eat or drink. She came to explain that there was a leak in the seal. At this time, there was a hoarse voice outside. She looked out and found that it was the 107th box where her husband was. And it was sinking rapidly at this time. In no time, it disappeared into the sea. In desperation, she took out a small bag and was ready to die with her husband. But at this time, her stomach suddenly moved. It was the baby kicking her in the stomach. Mia gave up the idea of suicide because she couldn't bear to let the baby die with her. The next day, she began to beg for life. The first thing to solve is food. She opened the last wooden box and looked forward to the surprise. But the director wasn't so kind. She gave her another box of plastic boxes. She scolded the director and the screenwriter at the same time. But the seal was still useful. She used it and the tape to block the leak. Then she found a tube. It quickly solved the problem of leakage and drainage. She wrote on the tape, record the daily date and the highest water level. In the luggage she carried with her, there was a piece of bread and 2 bottles of water, as well as some simple outdoor supplies. At this time, the phone suddenly rang. Thank God, it was her husband. It turned out that Nick was not dead. She saw the voice message from Mia, so she took the opportunity to escape from the container. At this time, she was still hiding in the city. After learning about Mia's current situation, Nick said he would find a way to save her. He told Mia to try to survive. It's easy to say. Unexpectedly, one rang after another. At this time, Mia's oxygen was broken and she had a storm at night. At this time, Nick also called. Mia's mobile phone fell into the water. The picture turned to the 3rd day. Mia successfully gave birth to a baby. This process is too sensitive and distressing. It is not suitable to release here. The baby's appearance gave her more hope, but the new problem also came with it. She had to eat something to have milk. The baby could survive, but there was nothing she could do in the container. She thought of the drill, so she started to break the container. One day passed. There was only the last bite of bread left, but for the baby, she couldn't give up. Finally, after a few days, a sudden rain saved her. It seems that the container is not useless. With water, you can at least survive, but it's not enough to have milk. She got up and continued to break the container. At this moment, Mia's physical strength was exhausted. The container was successfully opened by her. A ray of sunshine shone on her face. For her, this sunshine is hope. It's the motivation to let her and the baby live. She climbed out of the container and looked around. Although the endless waves made people desperate, the child in her arms made her extremely firm. No matter what, she has to live. On this day, she cleaned up the baby's poop. She threw the old diaper into the water. She said that the diaper was actually a sports jacket, but the diaper attracted a group of fish. Mia was very excited when she saw it. She immediately made a tool to insert the fish. But from morning to night, The child used dozens of diapers, but never succeeded. When she was lying down to rest, she suddenly saw an airplane in the air. She immediately returned to the container and smashed the liquid crystal TV to get a piece of glass. But there was an accident when she climbed out. A sharp iron plate scratched her thigh and cracked a deep wound. But she couldn't wait to feel the pain. She used a mirror to reflect on the plane. When she came back to her body, she began to save herself. She used iron wire and copper wire as needles and white wine as alcohol disinfectant. In this way, she endured the pain. She sewed wounds one by one. At night, she changed her mind and made a fishnet out of an earphone wire and put the diaper in the fishnet. In this way, she finally caught a fish. It was too late to cook it and eat it directly. The survival of a few days gave her an experience. Eating and drinking are no longer a problem. As long as the baby is healthy and alive, everything can be overcome for her. The next day, Nick called again, but there was no good news. She finally found a container, but she was found and shot when she ran away. It was too late. She said goodbye to Mia on the phone. Seeing this, I couldn't help but complain. Since she knew she was going to die, why did she have to tell Mia? It's better not to make this call. At least it can make Mia feel alive. A little illusion in a desperate situation may be a miracle. Finally, Nick hung up the phone. Since then, she and Mia have been separated. 20 days later, the container was full of seawater. Mia had no choice but to stick to the top of the box. She made a simple survival method and tied a rope with an earphone wire to one end of the survival method and a rope to the other end of the survival method. At this time, a seagull suddenly appeared. Mia was very surprised to see it because it meant that there must be land nearby. Mia struggled to hold the survival method. She collected a lot of fish bones in order to attract more seagulls. I don't know how long she was floating like this. Finally, a pair of women went out of the sea and discovered it. They immediately started to rescue her. After dragging the survival method up, they found a baby in it. At this time, the woman found the bag and began to drag it. Seeing this, I don't know if Mia is still alive. But as an explanation, I have to tell you earlier. In the end, Mia was successfully rescued. Although this may not be logical, such a brave mother doesn't deserve a perfect ending.